So going to Northwestern, for all you listeners that don't know, difficult school to get into. Did you always know you wanted to go to Northwestern because you're from here?
No, not at all. Actually, it was almost kind of like the last place I thought I would go because I grew up being like, oh, I'm gonna move away from my parents and be independent and everything. But after I had applied to a ton of colleges, I realized I wanted to like halfway through the process, I realized I wanted to do biomedical engineering because of like my love for health, which kind of then evolved into some of the reasons for this drink. But Northwestern had a great engineering program, and I fell in love with the school when I visited. So I ended up going and being like an hour and a half away from my parents, and they couldn't be happier. I just had they couldn't visit me too often.
Right, because it was too far away. Is that what you mean by that? Or what do you mean they couldn't?
I mean, like, it wasn't in my mind at first. It wasn't far enough away, but
Yeah.
luckily, I ended up really liking being close, so that they could come every semester and bring me groceries or things that I forgot.
Yes. By the
Honestly,
way, listeners, Northwestern's right on Lake Michigan too, guys. So the campus is set up on Lake Michigan, right near the North Shore. It's just right off of the North Shore, actually. And so it's just gorgeous. Cold in the winter because of the lake effect, but beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So you went down the engineering path. I won't even begin to understand what that is, by the way, being a political science major.
engineering for the body.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, great. You went to Wharton School of Business. So did you know that already knowing that you ended up wanting to be an entrepreneur, or what did you go there?
I went to the School of Business, got my MBA after working in my corporate job. I went to get my MBA in order to be able to build my business because at that point I realized I wanted to build brain food. So I went for that purpose.
So what was your corporate job then?
Yeah, so I'll have to like back up slightly.
Yeah,
Basically,
please. Please
I got
do.
my degree in biomedical engineering because I really loved both health and I wanted to do something in order to like help people. And then after that, I got my master's in genetics, where I worked on some like cancer genetics research. And it was in that point where I realized academia wasn't for me because, as cool as it is, you only focus on one small detail, which is really great for people who love it. But I realized I wanted to be able to be on the other side of research, where you get to take all the information that people get from laboratories and actually help to impact the people. I mean, you need people at all stages. But in order to do that at that point of my life, I realized I needed to know more about business. So I was like, okay, I'm an engineer. I literally don't understand anything about business at this point. And I was young. And so I thought, what's a good way to just figure out how business works? Maybe this isn't as normal for other people, but I was like management consulting because you just like work with a ton of different companies and you get to
Yeah.
understand how businesses tick or how to improve business or how not to run a business. So then that's what I did for about like 4.5 years. Management consulting company. I worked a lot there though with products and product design. And that's where I kind of started to work more with like food and beverage as well as like wellness products. And it was kind of like at that point where like things coincided where one, I burned myself out working a ton.
What's a ton? What were you working?
Oh, like probably like 80-hour weeks.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I mean, this kind of comes to the genesis of brain food, but basically I was working a ton. And because I was working that much, I stopped taking care of myself physically, which led to other like mental health difficulties. But luckily, because of my background in health, and it was a very similar thing with my co-founder, Dr. Gupta, because she at the time was in medical school and residency and also burning herself out and doing something similar, which I always find is funny when people in the healthcare industry do the opposite things
And studying.
coding because they're just so busy. I mean, they run them to the ground point. But basically, because we both had backgrounds in health, we knew and we realized that our physical habits could be exacerbating our mental health. That the two things were connected. I also had some background too because of biomedical engineering and genetics and nutrition as well. And while we were able to kind of aid other parts of our life in terms of like exercising or mindfulness, one thing that was just harder when we were super busy was getting the proper nutrition just every single day, all the time. Just because we're just not perfect. We don't live ideal lives. We can't be perfect. And so we were a bit frustrated that especially with our Western diet, why we couldn't have sometimes an easy way to get some of the things that we knew we were missing. With both of our backgrounds in health, as well as a lot of research and talking to people in the field, some of the key nutrients that are really important are like vitamin D, zinc, B12. But a lot of these nutrients can be a lot harder to get in our Western diet. Like it's just not as easy or convenient, especially because vitamin D you either get from the sun or like from fish, and that's just not a fast way to get into our diet. So we thought, why couldn't we make something that helped us fill those gaps while also reminding us how important diet and our physical wellness is to our mental health. And it's not just discipline. We just need something small to make us feel happy, get that dopamine hit. And usually it was like our eighth cup of coffee, soda, or sparkling water. And we thought, why couldn't that thing have some of those nutrients that are harder to get that we might be missing, just so we have one less stress, knowing that that's not the reason why we feel unfocused or burned out or unmotivated that day. And obviously, our wellness is a multiple of factors, but that's kind of what brain food spawned from. Just something that could taste good, but also help fill those gaps. And then we also wanted to use it as an anchor, like I said, education, so that when you're having it, you're like, hey, by the way, maybe I should do other things to support my physical wellness, because that's so important for my mental wellness. Or, hey, I couldn't get these nutrients today, and that's what's in brain food. Maybe I should think about getting that tomorrow, because we don't also want it to be like a supplement that you end up using as a crutch, because when it comes to something like nutrition, whole foods is always best.
Yes.
Get it always.
Do you balance your macros?
Not in a very like detailed way. Like I don't write it down, but when I do have meals, I try to think about, can I get something with more protein in it? Get something that it has colorful vegetables in it, and especially because I know that given our type of work and jobs, that vitamin D, zinc, and B12 are the things that we're going to be more common than not missing. B12, especially if you're more like vegan and vegetarian, because it's in meat products. Like I tend to opt for fish more than I would have before, and making sure I get that more in my life. Or, if I'm feeling really down in the dumps, I'll go take like a walk outside or something like that and get some.
Yeah, vitamin D. Yeah. So then when did you meet Dr. Gupta?
No, actually, she's one of my best friends from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wonderful, actually. So you just went down different journeys as far as school, but school was a huge part of both your lives.
Yeah. It was one of those things where we went down different paths, but we always found it very interesting that we had very similar interests in that type of field in terms of the body, nutrition, and the mind.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that our struggles also coincided with each other too. And so we would sitting and talking and saying things like, why is it so much harder for me to put my head down and work now? Why is it so much harder to deal with my emotions? And ultimately it was because of those type of things on the physical side, as well as that impact your mental health that we weren't thinking about as well. Because I mean, everything's important in life, and it's just like, if you can help one aspect, it makes it a little bit less difficult to then work on the others.
Well, especially when you're dealing with your brain, because it's your brain that controls so much of what's happening. It controls your mood, your functions. It's your brain that does all of that. Getting endorphins is so important, which is why exercise. But so are you guys from the same grade then? Did you graduate the same year at Neighbor?
Yes.
Okay. Now Dr. Gupta is a psychiatrist, correct?
Yes, she's specializing in psychiatry, correct?
Okay. And is she done with, because you're both very young, is she completely done with school? Is she now practicing full time as a psychiatrist?
We're on her like last few years of residency.
Okay, of residency. So she is actually practicing on
Yeah.
patients. Okay. And so since you're both so involved working as many hours as you were, how on the world did you find time to even think of creating your own product?
It's exactly why I went to go get my MBA, because I was like, I need the time to be able to create this. And it was during that time where we were able to take the time to do the research, discuss with her network and our network. Like I was able to discuss with like nursing and nutrition program at Penn, and she was able to discuss with her network as well as do all the research. And then I also used that year to actually create the product and launch the product while I was there. And then right after I graduated, the school that I went to also had like a food lab. So I was able to use like a test kitchen. And that was like the summer in between my 2 years where I basically forfeited the chance to work at a nice cushy internship and get a good tens of thousands of dollars. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be at this test kitchen, just changing one thing every day.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
flavors. It made me feel like I was back in the lab again. And as cool
Yeah.
as it is to do it, I was like, this is why I'm not a lab or like in the lab. It's cool, but it takes so long. I give so much, like people who can be researchers. It's like, it's so hard.
it's so critical and so hard to do. So thank God that they actually take the sacrifice to do it. Because I don't think anyone actually enjoys it, right?
No,
Or,
that's not true though. That's not true.
okay.
I think I funny story is when I was doing my research at this cancer research center, and I remember I was like working with cells, and there was a postdoc there, and this always sticks out of my mind because this was the moment that I realized academia was not for me.
Mhm.
He goes, "Isn't it so cool that every day we get to come into the lab and we could be discovering something new?" And I was like, wow, you love this job.
Yeah.
Don't. I'm so happy there are people like you out there because that makes me happy that you're so happy doing this.
Yeah. Now, when you
Yeah.
were testing that, were you just testing for the flavor to work? What was it that you were testing? So then explain that process. You guys had already decided you wanted to. So you had already determined you wanted to create this sparkling water, correct? You'd already.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like the first half of the year where I was in MBA school, on top of the research, we talked both with a lot of like experts on many different sides of the fields, but
Uh-huh.
also use that to figure out like who exactly what the product would be for and who the target market is. And
Yeah.
so by that next summer, we did realize, okay, we want to create this sparkling water. Like sparkling water is the right thing, not like a bar or something like that.
Right.
Food and beverage product, and especially in the wellness space. I
Mhm.
think nobody truly believes in it unless you really have the product there. So I was like, okay, we just need to make it. We need to try it. So the process to do that, one, I was really lucky because I got connected to somebody. I had a mentor who had was like is he's the CEO of like a formulation company. So he gave me some tips and ideas of what kind of flavors work together, as well as
Oh,
um,
wow.
how to test the ingredients.
So
Um,
huge to have that information.
yeah, but then in the end, it really is kind of one of those where nobody ever fully knows what they're doing. You just kind of have to do it.
Yes.
So I actually looked up after getting some advice. I then decided to start with mocktails and getting some different mocktail recipes because I thought, they usually have a good flavor balance in them. So I ended up finding 17 different flavors that I want, like different types of mocktail flavors that I wanted to try. Started with those and then whittled that down. I then that summer I probably started more with like 20 and then whittled it down to 17. And then I did focus groups. Again,
Smart.
so
Did you pick them? How did you pick the focus groups? How did you?
I mean, so what I did was I tried to, it was mostly different groups of students at the time for the first main section. So I
Mhm.
got about like 50 people from different years, different genders, different parts to kind of reduce all the confounding factors, get people's opinion. And then from there, I was able to kind of whittle it down to 5 flavors. And that was both because of the data I got from people, but then I also looked at like the cost information as well as the nutritional information because there were some flavors where I would have to add a lot more juice because we wanted it to be use as much of like real juice as possible than any kind of like tons of like flavors or anything else. And but we also didn't want it to be full of sugar. And there's just
Right.
some things that wouldn't work. So then we whittled it down to 5, and then we did a ton of sampling events at many different. Luckily, because we were in the MBA school, there was a lot of different events we could do where people could sample. And I think we sampled at places where there was like usually like 300 to 500 participants, and we did like 3 or 4 of those in order to come up with like our final 3 that we ended up with today.
It's great that you decided when you were at school to do this because you have such access to to the people. But you'd already done consulting and you'd already done that so you know what you're looking for the product. It's just great that there's a lot of people that don't have those backgrounds that I speak to, that it's just a lot more trial and error to get to the point that you're already at.
I think it was very helpful, especially when it comes to the cost piece as well as the packaging piece. When
Mhm.
I worked a lot at the company, I fortunately was able to also work on initiatives involved in sustainability.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to make sure, given that we're making a consumer product, we do
Yes.
it as sustainable as possible.
Meaning the packaging, right? That's what you're referring to.
Yeah, the packaging and the other parts of the of the product that can add waste that you don't realize. Like one, even the fruit juice that we like, the types of fruit we ended up using as our flavors. I would look at like how much waste that fruit would actually cost in order to get that fruit juice, as well as the reason why we're using like aluminum cans. And I didn't even think about things like glass or plastic, the glass especially, which some people don't really realize, but because glass is so heavy, if you have to ship it a lot of places, it can be like a really big environmental factor because of the heavy weight on the transportation. And
Mhm.
unless you're using like recycled glass, creating glass from scratch is also a very like energy filled process versus like aluminum is infinitely recyclable.
Yeah, you can just keep recycling it. Yeah, that's why you chose the aluminum can.
Yeah.
And then, so when did you take it from the test source of going down to um, the three products that you're selling? Ginger apple, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and mention what they are.
Oh yeah. The three is ginger apple, watermelon fizz, and strawberry thyme.
So once you got down to what's, by the way, that's great. The difference in those, they're very different tasting. You know what I mean? For people that like those different flavors. I think you did a smart choice with that. Do you have a can there so people can see?
I have one right here.
Awesome.
Where
Is that the watermelon one?
This is the strawberry thyme.
Oh, strawberry time. Okay, cool.
It's like pinkish.
That's definitely the one I would have for the way.
Yes.
Definitely the strawberry one's got to be great. And that, okay. And so then we'll get into that specific part of that, of the product. Because we have people that want to buy your product, then we have people that are also entrepreneurs themselves. So when you got down to the product and then you got down to the type of can, what did you start doing as far as distributions, or as far as, okay, now we're going to market the product? Like, how did you decide where it was going to be made?
Yeah. So after we decided on our three flavors, because this is like a canned carbonated sparkling water, this wasn't something that we could just make at home, given we didn't have the equipment to use the pressure to keep the carbonation inside. So we needed to find like a co-packer. On top of that, too, when we had our three flavors, we also then had another 6 months where after we found our co-packer, we worked with them to help actually like build a scalable like recipe, because I can't just go get ingredients and juice them myself and sell it. In that way, it's technically illegal.
Oh,
Right.
no, it's illegal, but it's also not efficient.
Yeah, it's also not efficient. I guess it could be legal if I like, got all the uh requirements to make my house a test kitchen, or I did it at a test kitchen. But
Okay.
it's a lot of work, and I would have had to get it's not efficient, exactly.
It's
So
not
we were
efficient, not economically smart.
yeah. So we interviewed a bunch of co-packers, find one we really liked. They helped like finalize a formula with us in order that we could find like who our suppliers were. And that's how we ended up basically choosing our co-packer. Our co-packer is like in New Jersey, especially because that's where we were close by
Mhm.
at Orton. And then in terms of distribution, we decided to focus on two areas right now, Philly and Chicago, mostly because that's to be quite honest, that's where like our network was. Also because we wanted to start off with focusing on campuses and corporate offices, because we know those people are the ones who are living very high stress, busy lifestyle. So we started first like distributing at Penn's location as our pilot in order to better understand how to market our product, what was working, what wasn't. And with that, we also then partnered with like a local distributor in Philly who does like local products, which is very helpful. So they kind of run our distribution over there. And then once we piloted that and then we expanded at Penn and Drexel, we then moved to do like pre-sales online for like official launch, like D2C. And so right now, because we're pretty new, right now we're at the point where we sell to a couple corporate offices, campuses, and then some like cafes and stores, as well as online. And so we're just now going to expand, focusing on growing our D2C, as well as some of our more like boutique um, grocery stores and
Sure.
cafes
Right.
right now, as
Like
well as,
Lost Larson. I see Lost Larson for Andersonville and Wicker Park.
yeah.
Is that a grocery store? Is that like a higher end grocery store?
No, you should definitely check out Lost Larson. It's like a premium bakery.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Yes.
Premium
Yeah.
bakery. Love, by the way, both of those neighborhoods are incredible. There's a
Yeah.
lot of diversity in both, and I just love those neighborhoods in general, and a lot of great restaurants. Restaurant Row in Wicker Park on Division is great. There's a lot of diversity, a lot of different places to go there. I lived in Bucktown for a long time too. Oh, so now you're in the stage of, well, yeah, you're now just because I completely agree with going to the local high-end stores. Completely agree because you live so close to a big city. That's just it. That's a huge advantage. It explains a lot. I don't know why I didn't connect the dots on Wharton, and that's why your Penn's campus, why you guys were in Pennsylvania. I don't know why I didn't make that connection before the podcast. But what I wanted to know, so what makes it an NOO product? I see that it's B12, D3, and then the rhodiola root. Can you explain that? The root extract? I've never even heard of it.
Rhodiola.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rhodiola is I mean it's something called an adaptogen, and that might be the word you kind of heard like thrown around. There's a lot of like adaptogenic drinks and things like that. And what an adaptogen is it's an herb from a plant that
Mhm.
basically has some sort of effect in on your body. And rhodiola specifically has been known to aid both stress and focus. The stress one is because it can help to regulate your basically your stress hormone. And in the most simplified way, I mean, I'm not going to try to explain it in like a scientific way because that's very confusing, but in a more simplified way, and I say that more because like our body's confusing, so it doesn't work this simply, but
Mhm.
in a simplified way, basically what it does is when your stress hormone starts to spike, it helps to pause the release of it so that it releases more slowly. So that's like it's basically like imagine something stressful happens and then like all of a sudden you get really stressed really fast. Instead, it goes slower so your body can then help regulate it the right way before it kind of takes over. And then it's also known, and I don't know the actual scientific way how it does it, but it's also in many different like studies known to aid your ability for focus. And I think more in like the attention aspect.
Mhm.
That being said, I like to caveat though that something like an adaptogen like rhodiola, for us, it's kind of like an extra ingredient in brain food to help, but not like the core active ones,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
what like vitamin D, zinc, and B12 are there for. The rest of them are great to have, but it's more, and they're helpful, but it depends on the person, how sensitive you are to
Okay.
them for how much it's going to help. And I say that because like I also feel like sometimes there are some wellness products and drinks that can be a little disingenuous. Did I say that right?
Mhm. Yeah.
The fact that they kind of toot that if you have all these things, like if you have ashwagandha once, you're going to feel super relaxed.
Right.
And it's not necessarily true. It one depends on like how sensitive you are to that herb, if it's going to actually feel anything right away. But it
Yes.
also adaptogens work much like my Dr. Gupta made this comparison. It's not the best comparison, but I'm going to say it.
Mhm.
She says it's similar to an antidepressant in the sense of if you have it once, it can help, but if you continue to have it, the effects will compound
Mhm.
and it'll help more and more. So therefore, if you have something like some like adaptogen, if you had that adaptogen every day, it's eventually going to do what it says it's going to do, and you're either going to be somebody who feels it much sooner or much later.
And because it's an adaptogen, am I correct in assuming that unlike taking a pharmaceutical drug where if you're taking so much of it, it starts to not even work. It does starts to not work for you because your body's adapted to what it is. Is it because it's an adaptogen? It does the opposite. Like you know what I mean?
I actually don't know. It's a good question. I think it's more just that it works better by compounding. It's actually similar. Vitamin D is actually kind of similar in that way, where it also does work better the more you get vitamin D consistently. But I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's I guess it's technically the opposite of like caffeine in a way because your body can
Yes.
adapt to caffeine. I think there might be though a plateau point. Like I think it's probably like it gets to a certain level in your body and then you'll plateau. I don't think though you'll be tolerant, but yeah, I'm probably not the right person to ask given I'm not an herbologist.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what about what's going to be the sweetener you're using? The fermented red Can you explain that to me?
Yes, I definitely can. So I'll say that brain food is sweetened in two ways.
Mhm.
The majority is sweetened using the real fruit juice. Um, that you'll see, and that's any of the sugar that's in the drink. We have either like it's 4 to 5 grams. It's all natural from the actual fruit, and we also add
Not added.
yeah, no sugar added. Exactly, no sugar added, and we add fiber, which is what the chicory
Oh,
root inulin is. It's a small amount, so I don't usually like toot the fact that it has fiber because you need a lot more than that in your day. But I'm also not going to put a ton in a drink so that if you don't get enough fiber, you then are in the bathroom the whole time. But by having the fiber in there and the natural fruit juice, it then can work similarly to a fruit, where the fiber can help manage the blood sugar levels. But then the second way, and this is so we can make sure we don't add too much of the fruit juice to make it too sugary, is
yeah.
something called Reb M, which is a fantastic natural sweetener. What it is it's they make it actually the same way that they do with stevia. The difference is that stevia is from the stevia plant and Reb M is actually from the sugarcane plant. And what they do is they ferment the plant. And I like to think of it like if you're going to make kombucha or something, you
Right.
ferment and it's able to kind of extract then naturally the part of the plant that can add to the sweetness with actually adding the sugar molecule itself.
Yeah, I got you. So it's not coming from the sugar molecule in the plant, is what you're stating, but it's still sweetened because you're fermenting it.
Yeah.
Are you looking to eventually sell this product, like sell the brand, or are you looking to? What is the goal for you and Dr. Gupta?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good question, and it is always good to know like what your end goal is. I think we created this knowing that we weren't looking for an immediate sell within like the next 3 to 5 years. If that's the case, we would have gone and gotten funding. We would
Yeah.
we would already be talking to like maybe even VCs, or that's not something I usually recommend for CPG
Venture
companies
capitalists, yeah.
because in that case you need a lot of capital to grow that fast because marketing is the biggest reason why you don't want to go national too quick.
Yep.
Because people are aware of you, your velocities are gonna be slow and you're gonna fall. I think like we definitely want to be able to grow this business in a way where we can keep the mission and the vision. We can keep clean products. I think in my mind, like I'm not somebody who feels like I need to be the CEO forever. If it
Yeah.
gets to the stage, I'm happy to relinquish that power to somebody. Anything that's better for the company. And so, like right now, I'd say we're not necessarily like looking to sell the business anytime soon. If way in the future that makes sense for the business in terms of its growth stage, and we can find somebody who's gonna do a really good job with it, and at that point of our life, it makes sense, then maybe you'll ask me this again in 2 years and I'll have a different story. But I think especially something as when it comes to wellness and really wanting to make sure at the core it actually is healthy,
Yes.
actually helping people. If
Yes.
you only think of the money of selling the product
Yeah.
at the beginning, I think you're gonna lose your mission and your vision really fast.
It's great. That's great advice. That's the biggest advice I give young entrepreneurs is that you need to focus on the product. It's the product in the space that you're in, which is health and wellness. You need to focus on the product itself. You do. It needs to be realistic on how you can market it, of course, and the packaging, like you're talking about. There needs to be a business element to it, big time. But you're right. It's about the health and wellness, and I'm proud of you for having as a much older person than you, I'm proud of you for having that perspective. You give me faith in your generation. You're not just trying to be a YouTube influencer and yada yada yada. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's a very different generation than the one I grew up in. But I won't go down that soapbox. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this podcast. I know my listeners have too, especially with how intelligent you are. It comes out very clear. You explain your product very clearly. How do they find you? What is your website?
Yeah, the website is brainfoodmood.com. And our Instagram and TikTok handle is at Brain Food. We really should change it to Drink Brain Food, but right now it's Brain Food Mood.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed my time with you.
Thank you so much. I had such a fun time, Kevin. Thank you.
All right. Take care.